Our speaker is Michelle Bunting. She began her journey in 2018 with a deep interest in past life regression. Then eventually, as she's done the regressions, there came a regression that wasn't a regression. It was more an opening into the universe and a preparation for her to become a channel. What had happened, she had this I am experience where she was touched by Source and began channeling. In her I am experience unfolded a time where millions of beings were observing her in her interaction with the I am. It lasted about 20 minutes. And she saw this group known as Abraham and another group with the Seth group. And that's how she became interested and introduced to the Seth entity. She has a private practice she calls the Conscious Cultivator, utilizing multi-pronged conscious modalities. She helps lots and lots of people, and they awaken and expand their inner power, construct the communication highway between the self and the superconscious mind, the soul. She provides past life regressions, future life progressions, channeling sessions, vibrational coaching. She's an educator of quantum mechanics of the law of attraction, and she navigates clients through the process of creating the life you want through her. Today, she's going to talk about the awakening experience and going within. So that's her fishing coming through here. She writes, going within your higher self to connect with the oneness of all that is God or source. The journey aligns with your conscious self with unconditional love and brings clarity, joy, and empowerment to your understanding of your physical existence in this reality. So she's going to share her journey with how she's achieved this expansion through our awakened connection, experiencing a conscious level of knowing what allows us to understand who we are and what we really are, and welcome in those rich energies of love, joy, clarity, passion, deliciousness, and adventure. And then we become unlimited, eternal, spiritual beings that we are. And this is how we go with our experience, our physical experience. And as she would say, the great shift is upon us. And it is now time to rise up and continuing our awakening experiences. So let's give a warm circle welcome to Michelle Bunting.
Thank you very much for that beautiful and warm welcome. This is my first experience with the circle. I have to say it has been very loving and very welcoming. So thank you for continuing that energy and welcoming me here this morning. I'm excited to share parts of my awakening path because I think it's important now to understand there are many people that have beliefs about the awakening journey to the oneness that we all have with each other, the oneness that we are all connected to with Source. And so I'm hoping that today that by sharing my particular path, that it will allow more people to understand that it can come at any time. It can be within a realm of a level of openness, to be open to the opportunities as one awakens, but then also continues to evolve from the initial awakening. So for those who feel like they haven't connected to their oneness and haven't had that spiritual awakening, or for those who have been on the path for quite some time and are looking forward to the continuing unfolding of experiencing the energetic unity of the oneness with all that is and with each other, I offer you this story. And so in 2018, I must confess that I knew nothing. I was going to try to make it nicer and say very little, but that probably would be an overstatement. I probably knew nothing about the world of metaphysics and the spiritual but not religious world. But what did happen was a series of events started occurring where this one book, Dr. Weiss's book, Many Lives, Many Masters, kept appearing on my phone. So you can imagine that for someone who knows nothing, for this one book to continue to appear on my phone, I could be looking at something completely unrelated, and I could move to the next tab and there would be this book. And the same thing was happening on my computer. And I also must confess that I ignored this for about 2 to 3 months. And so thinking that it was very odd, not really understanding that it was a communication, if you will, of that my time was approaching. I read the subject material, but also thought the subject material was a little odd. But then finally, after the repetition of it appearing on my devices, I gave in just to give in. And I bought the book. And then I read the book at such a rapid rate. It was the most interesting story of a man, a very well-renowned, well-respected man who also, like me, knew very little in this metaphysical area. And he had this experience. And he chronicled the experience through a patient, but he made an assertion. And he said in his book, and of course then I had to buy all of the other books and read them, he has asserted that anyone could have this experience. And I thought, well, that's interesting. And I like to experiment with new things. I love new things. So I put it to the test and ultimately created from his books, from his directions, a narrative by which I could use to see if that were true. And lo and behold, he was right. And what I did not understand, because of the limited scope of my understanding, was that I was beginning a practice of going within myself, understanding the memories that are stored there from all of my other journeys, which can be found, which is, you can think of as your own walking Akashic records, a memory of not only of all the other physical lives that we have had, but also, and more important to me, what was very fascinating is what would happen when a life ended. And the inner being, each one of ours, has the record of where they went after they transitioned out of their bodies. And that was enormously interesting. Clearly, I had never had experiences like that before, but very quickly became very excited about doing this every week. Now, it should be mentioned that Dr. Weiss did mention that the repetition of experiencing the past life regressions, which is really a process of going within, that the repetition of this is what appeared to, with all of his other patients, reveal latent spiritual or psychic abilities. And he didn't go into it very much, and so I didn't pay attention to it very much. What I did pay attention to, from a very linear fashion, was his chronicling of his research and then implementing it and practicing it. I spent months after I taught a friend of mine who also knew nothing. But we were, I felt, intelligent women, and we were intelligent enough to experiment with this. And when we realized after the first time how joyous it was to experience these memories that we all have within us, then she became very excited. And so every week for approximately 8 months, we would give each other, facilitate for each other past life regressions, actual regressions where your inner being is reviving and communicating the memories of what you thought, how you felt, the understanding that you can know what other people in your lives also thought and felt, because we're telepathic. the energy that connects us to source, which flows to us and through us at all times, and is the same energy that connects us to each other. It is the unity, is the oneness of everything. And so we are telepathic. Now, consciously, I do not know what you are thinking, but subconsciously, my inner being knows exactly what you're thinking and exactly how you're feeling. That too is recorded in your memories. And so it's interesting to know that when you go within to tap into to that knowledge about yourself and your experiences and how you transitioned to what I then called the other side. And there were loved ones and guides and teachers waiting to assist the spirit, the being that is you, to process the life, the information of the life that you had just experienced. It was a very loving journey. It was like the circle. It was very welcoming and it was very loving. And so to do this every week for 8 months, yes, there came a time when we began to do a past life regression, and I knew immediately in my mind something was amiss. And something was amiss because I had stepped in to, through the meditation, I had stepped into another place, but I still looked like myself. I still looked like I do right now, how I can be seen by all of you. And that is not something that is supposed to happen. What's supposed to happen is I'm supposed to look like someone else. I had a different body. I was a different gender. I was a different sexual orientation. I was different culture, different religion. But in this place where I stepped into, I looked exactly like me. And so there was some confusion because my friend and I had gotten into a very repetitious cycle of what to expect. Again, not understanding the net effect of what happens when one consciously makes the decision to go within. We didn't see it as going within at all. It was kind of just a new toy that we were playing with, right? We were able to tap into these memories, and then we were able to transition to the other side where there were these very loving, intelligent teachers who were sharing all kinds of information. We felt like children at Christmas that had just opened this never-ending gift where we could receive wisdom and guidance. And so when I stepped into this place, I understood that, one, wherever I was, there were no people here. And two, there were no buildings. There was almost a nothingness. Imagine, if you can, a night sky with no stars. And yet you are standing on a beautiful ground of perfect white sand. And so it is the combination, this place, of nighttime and daytime, which was amazing. But then I could see what I thought initially was stars filling up the night sky, millions upon millions. And I was curious because then I understood that they were not stars. They were the actual lights of all the beings that had appeared in this moment. And it was the first time that I was able to perceive at a physical level in my brain that I truly was not alone. And there was an ability for them to communicate that they are always with us. Non-physical source, the loving energies that are in non-physical are always with us. And it took some time to understand this because of the magnitude of how many there were. It was endless. It was unlimited. And then in the middle of the sky, there was a large head, and you will have to forgive me because you have to understand, although we had been going within, we actually thought we were doing past life regressions for 8 months. We did not know the proper terms. We did not know the proper language. And so there was this big head, and for a week, we called him Big Head because we did not know what that occurrence was. I know it's terrible, but I am forgiven, and there was an understanding that I had to be able to have the opportunity to learn at my own pace, as we all do. And so we were unprepared for this. And so, but we thought we're intelligent women. We'll do the same thing that we did with the past life regressions. We will frame questions in advance, just like we do for the guides that are on the other side after each regression. Yes, that's what we will do. And so we did that. And then we went back, and I went back to the same place. Sure enough, there's the sand in the sky. And here come all of the lights. And sure enough, here comes Big Head. And then we had our list of questions. And I was in a very deep meditative state. And my friend had the list ready. I had written my questions. She read her questions. And she began. And she began with the question of, who are you? Because at this point, we knew enough to understand that we could communicate with non-physical. And the answer came very slow. And the energy was heavy. It didn't hurt, but I could feel the weight of a shift in energy that was very large. And the words came very slowly. I am, and there was a pause, that I am. And so you can imagine, we kind of sat there in nothingness for a moment, not quite sure what to do with that answer. And so, well, she was very good, and she rotated around it, and she began asking the questions. And for 20 minutes, she conversed with I am, that I am. And then at some point, it was clear that the I am source was no longer going to engage in conversation, but had introduced another entity that would continue to bring clarity and answer our questions. And the name of that entity was the family of teachers of infinite intelligence called Seth. And I am explained before he exited that I would be able to channel. We did not really know what channeling was, but what we did understand is that we could ask questions and get answers, and that was enough to know at the time. Roll it forward, we then stopped doing past life regressions and began channeling. What does this all mean? This is, I feel, a demonstration that there is a level of worthiness that we all have, regardless of where we stand, regarding our knowledge or regarding our past experiences, that at any moment in time, we are and continue to remain and always have been worthy of that, the beauty of that connection, of the oneness with ourselves, with each other, and with Source, all that is. And it even took probably several months in the last, I would say 5 months, before I could look back on my awakening experience and the continuing levels of evolution, the offerings that the initial awakening experience offered to me, and understanding there is an initial awakening experience. It can be triggered by anything that comes into our experience. There is a loving relationship between us and non-physical, that where they are trying to bring that love and bring that clarity and bring that awakening of ourselves and with them to us all the time. And what is necessary along this path, along this journey, is to almost from a childlike perspective, be trusting of the communications of when something odd starts to appear on your phone or your computer repetitiously, that it's okay to trust that and follow your impulses and kind of follow the breadcrumbs that are being led for you along the trail, that your own inner beings, our own inner beings, is cooperating with, in sync with Source, with all that is. And so I like telling this story so that everyone can understand that everyone can have these experiences. Everyone can use these experiences to experience a shift in one's perspective of how we view our world, how we view ourselves, and how we view each other. And it is in this loving approach to this unity, to this understanding of the oneness that begins within us, and the ability to have beliefs and have thoughts that allow that energy of that oneness to come forward in what we have termed now an awakening experience or an awakening journey. And what that really means for lay people, like I used to be, is an openness and a level of trust to follow your intuition, to follow your guidance, even into the unknown places that seem on its face a little different, or a little challenging, or a little perhaps frightening. And understanding that there's never anything to be frightened of our power that is in direct connection with our spiritual selves, our inner beings or our souls, and to embrace that part of us and the very powerful energy of love that it is constructed with, which is the energy that connects us with Source, with all that is, and with each other. And so it is my hope that in offering this very unusual story from a person who could very much be considered an average person, who in this community and in this world and in this industry know very, very little, and yet is able to intuitively, because we all have our souls, we all have our inner beings that are all connected to the energy of Source energy, that if we could just for a moment follow something that's a little unusual, that it could lead us into a path of enormous love, of enormous acceptance, and an enormous understanding perceptually in our brain that there is an energetic connectedness. I will never again be able to look at another face and not understand that I am looking at someone else's beautiful inner being, that I am looking at the face of Source itself. For it is that energy that we all house, that we all have the ability to utilize. It is the most powerful energy in all of the known universes, this energy of unconditional love that flows to us and through us at all time. And I know that it flows to every single person on this planet, which is why I just smile even when I'm on Zoom, or if I'm at the Wawa, or if I'm at the gas station and another being, another human, wonderful inner being in physical form approaches me for any reason. It just makes me smile that even though they might not have experienced that connectivity with their oneness, I know who they are. I know who they really are and what they really are, and how powerful and loving and special everyone is. And so I thank you for offering me this opportunity to look at all of you. It's such a joy. I'm looking at all of these eternal, unlimited spiritual beings having this lovely co-creative experience with Source energy, and experiencing their realities from their perspectives, from their viewpoints, all differently. And that is the beauty. None of our realities are identical. Each one of us is creatively expressing our uniqueness through the perspective of our own inner knowledge of how we want to enjoy each other, how we want to enjoy the world and enjoy the energy that connects us to Source. So I do thank you all for creating this platform. I'm happy to offer the information, but I'm more happy to be able to encounter new faces of inner beings that I have never seen before. So thank you very much, and I'm certainly open to having any questions and answers that you might have.
Thank you. Thank you, Michelle. You're welcome to speak longer if you'd like.
I am. Okay, I wanted to be mindful. I didn't want to go over time.
About another 5 minutes or so.
Wonderful. Okay, well, happy. Wonderful. So I'll just tie in the last piece of it then. When I began channeling with my friend, I did it for several months, many months. every week, as we did with the past life regressions. And at some point, at some point, we were told that it was time for me to leave that environment. And initially we thought, oh, well, we'll just channel in the living room instead. And it was, no, 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 you must leave this house. And that was disconcerting for me because, one, it was change, and change can be a little uncomfortable. But I complied, I cooperated, and I began to look for other friends and family members that would allow me to do this channeling so that I could, because I enjoyed the energy of it so much while I was doing it. And this particular form of channeling is called trance channeling, meaning I do not remember the questions that are asked while I am in trance, and I do not remember the answers, but what I do remember is the energy and the emotion, and I do have some sense of my body. And so I was looking for people to do this with, and at some point I realized I ran out of family and friends who loved me enough to let me do this strange thing with them, because I had no family and friends that were in the metaphysical or spiritual but not religious communities. So soon I ran out of family and friends, and then I realized I need to meet new people that I can do this with. And for a month, I allowed the energy of my desire to meet other people who would be interested in this to grow. And then eventually, what came right to my door, what I manifested, was my very good friend now, Daniel Endy, who saw my meetup group, which was my first attempt to meet people, and who, not by coincidence, knew an amazing amount of information in this industry, in this world, and was able to very effectively assist me and very pleasantly show me how to enter this community so that I could now reach an unlimited amount of people that I could do my practice with. And that is how I went from the initial going within stage to ending up here on a Zoom session with the Circle of Miracles community. And so, because I realized I was trying to be mindful of time, so I didn't want to go too far, but that is exactly how I went from leading a very physical life, being concerned with very physical aspects of life, and how through this seeming blip that wouldn't go away on my phone and computer, I followed a breadcrumb trail that led me here, which I can tell you 2.5 years ago, if you had asked me if I would be here on a Zoom session with the Circle of Miracles, I apologize, there's someone trying to call in on my phone, that I would be speaking of going within and a conversation about all of our awakening journeys and all of our awakening experiences, I probably would not have believed you. Such was a very different perspective that I was living 2.5 years ago. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much. It
Yes.
is fascinating to always see everybody's journey to go from something that, you just take as ordinary experience, and then all of a sudden you're reminded over and over again, get the book, get the book, get the book.
Yeah.
And then one thing leads to the next, and it's just amazing.
And it must have happened to other people. Yes, I'm sure I'm not the only one where something keeps reappearing until you finally say, hey, I'm going to look at that. Yes?
Always.
Yeah.
Always.